If you're making any of these 10 mistakes, you're going to struggle to scale your business. In fact, most business owners are making at least one, if not more of these, and it's the thing that's keeping you from scaling rapidly, scaling the way that you want to. So we're going to dive into the 10 most common mistakes that we see in as we work and we're scaling businesses. This is what we see from business owners, and we want to give these to you so you can avoid making these mistakes, avoid getting hung up on these things. This is where your revenue plateaus. This is where people leave, where you start losing share in the marketplace. So we want to dive into this and give you the insights from the over 3,000 businesses that we've worked with, all the way from startups through nine figures, the 100 plus businesses that we've directly consulted in over the last 10 plus years. So we're going to dive in and teach you guys what you need to avoid so you can scale, and then what you need to do. So the first mistake that we see business owners make, and I've got the team here, and they'll jump in, they'll give their insights. I'll toss some of these to them to get their specific insights. But the first one seems obvious, but so many business owners miss it, and it's simply trying to scale too fast. There's this idea of, if I just do more, I can scale faster. I had a conversation with a business owner about a month ago, who we were looking at. They were considering working with us, and ultimately, really, we made the decision not to work with them because they were too scattered. They had 4 or 5 different businesses collectively doing maybe about $10 million, but they were trying to scale too fast, acquiring new businesses, trying to move forward and do all these things. And what we found was that it wasn't an efficient way of scaling their business, and it would only create problems, because when you're scaling, you've got to scale strategically. If you scale too fast, the wheels come off the vehicle, that whole idea. So I want to pitch it to the team, because we've all had different experiences. We've worked in consulting within our respective disciplines of marketing, sales, HR, and leadership development, finance. So I want to pitch it to Kirk or Tim. What have you guys seen have been the problems when you try to scale too fast?
I'll jump in here. I think the biggest thing that I've seen over the past is when you have an opportunity to grow, um, and generally that means you've got a big contract or proposal that has come through, and then you just kind of mash the gas towards that without any type of infrastructure on the back end. So the example I've got really is we had a client. This was several years ago, but ultimately they had about a $10 million business, and they had grown that in a couple of years. The reality was, once we got deeper into it, one client made up $7 million of that 10 million, and they were convinced that they were ready to go to that $20 million mark. And the reality was is the infrastructure was only in place for about a $3.5 million business. So they didn't have the systems, they didn't have the people, they didn't have the processes in place. And ultimately, we had to take a step back, and it took about 9 months to build the infrastructure necessary to be a $5 million business, knowing that we have to treat ourselves as if we're a $3.5 million business right now, moving to five, not a $10 million business running towards 15. So I think for me, that was a pretty big eye opener. This was several years ago, but I mean, it's really about coming back to, are we doing the basics right? The fundamentals never get boring to the ones that are doing the best. It's always about the fundamentals, and it's getting back to perfecting that process.
Yeah, 100%. And so here's the point to wrap that up. It's not simply scaling too fast, it's scaling faster than you're able to build the infrastructure, faster than you're able to support. You wouldn't take your toddler who's 2, 3 years old and put him on a motorcycle. That's scaling too fast. And there are a large number of business owners that do that exact thing. So scale at the pace that you're able to grow. And one of the things that we like to say is that every business is broken, and you want to, your ability to scale and the speed at which you can scale is predicated on how quickly you can find what's broken and fix it. Too many business owners are scaling faster than they're able to, one, find the problems, and two, fix the problems. So it creates all of this chaos within their business.
I'll also dovetail into that. We get caught into the elusiveness of whole. What I mean by that is if it's not breaking, if we don't see those active breaks, we can get into the allure of it's not broken. And it's when we stop looking for the cracks, for the breaks in the foundation, is where we start to get into the that next when we start stacking on either revenue or client load, and we don't have the infrastructure, we start to see the cracks exposed once the foundation's sinking.
Yeah, absolutely. And so many business owners that to that point, they recognize they're going too fast, too late. And by then, like you said, it's sinking. And then a lot of business owners will come to us when they're in crisis. And at that point,
I'd
we've been
love
able to
to
turn
add a
businesses
layer of
around, but
complexity to this.
it's a bigger
And
overhaul.
that's
It's much more
kind of
painful.
where it sits. There's too fast and there's too fast. A lot of what we're going to be talking about today is what are the symptoms of trying to scale too fast? Because that is really the crux of why most businesses fail, is they're trying to grow too quickly. But there's also the side of it where you're not growing fast enough. You're not outpacing with your growth, the growth of your costs or the growth of costs in your market. So again, there's a right speed to grow. We were working with a client 2 years ago that they went from $18 million to $80 million in the span of 18 months. And it started because he had a relationship reach out with again, they're in the construction industry, so that type of growth is possible. And they reached out and said, hey, I'd love for you to submit proposals for a $60 million group of work. If you win this, we'll give you the opportunity of bidding on more work. And he reached out to us and he asked the question of, am I the right size for this? This is 3 times my current size. Can I do this? And our question was, what happens if you don't? If you submit the bid and you don't get it, what's the pain? There wasn't any. And I said, great. So let's submit the bid. And when you get it, it's not going to start for 9 months. And we have 9 months to figure out what infrastructure you need in your business at the point that it starts in order for you to accept this growth. And so again, when we say trying to scale too fast, or on the flip side of it, saying growing too slowly, it's understanding what is needed to support the growth that I'm currently experiencing or that I'm trying to experience, and making sure that you set all the infrastructure in place in order to support that growth. It's all about balance in your business because rapid growth is possible. It's just making sure that you have the infrastructure or the support systems in place to support you, to support your team, and to support the clients, because ultimately that's what it's all about. Kick it back to AJ.
Yep, absolutely. And there's a lot that goes into that, but that's really the first mistake that we see. The second mistake we see business owners making, Kirk's going to drop it in the chat right now, that you guys can copy these. I encourage you to copy these down. Let me fix my tech over here. So that second mistake is hiring too quickly or poorly. I'm going to let Kirk take this one because this one is, we've seen this really hurt businesses, especially when you're hiring in key roles. But I won't get away. I'll pitch it over to Kirk.
Yeah. So, I mean, I, I was working with a client yesterday about this, and it's about really understanding who you are as a business, who you are as a team, and being faithful to that. We talk a lot about starting with the foundation before you fortify. Part of that foundation is, as a business, you have an opportunity to either have a culture by design or by default. And a lot of us, and I won't excuse us from this, a lot of us fall into the trap of we need to hire to catch up, or we need to hire to plug holes in the business, and we start to throw people at our problems. We have an opportunity to hire well and quickly, but not fast. And what I mean by that is creating a process for people to enter into your organization through the onboarding process. And the onboarding starts when you post that first job description to Indeed, to ZipRecruiter, to name that platform, that's when onboarding starts. But having kind of this tour guide Barbie type of experience where every point of contact along the way, you're you're sharing your mission, your vision for the organization, your core values, or how people are successful inside of your business. When we're starting out, we started with those core tenets of who is going to be successful in this organization. When you try to grow too fast or too quickly through human capital and bringing people and trying to solve your problems by throwing people at your problems, you get away from those core tenets of, okay, for all true, one of our core values is generosity, being results driven, being emboldened. If we get away from having people that are emboldened, not only be courageous in the face of fear, but also be courageous on behalf of other team members, other clients, other coworkers. If we get away from people being results driven, we don't want them to come in and be okay with just being okay. We want people that are stretching themselves personally, professionally, financially, in every realm of their being. Because here's the deal, you only have this person from 8 to 5. But as business owners, if we get away from what makes us us, we forget that our real value to this person, because they can have an 8 to 5 anywhere in this world, our value to them and their value to us is our ability to invest in them from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock in the morning. So they in turn flip that switch and pour into our business, showing us that they are fully aligned with their mission, with the vision, and with the core values, that they're able to be successful inside of our environment. We're asking somebody to leave their base. If you want to look at it in military terms, we're asking the soldiers to leave their base for the day. And the only time that soldiers leave the base is when they're on a mission. They're training for something bigger, when they have a vision. And so if we're going to ask them to leave their home base, we need to have a compelling mission and vision for them to fulfill during their 8 to 5, leave inspired and feel invested in and willing and able to pour into their personal life from that 5 to 8. So if we get away from that by hiring too quickly, hiring poorly, and those things are kind of synonymous, we can find ourselves with the people that we don't understand how um, they even got in our business, because we got away from hiring for the culture and hiring for performance, and we got away from that to get to hiring to solve some sort of pain, as Tim likes to call it, pain. What pain tolerance do you have when you're hiring? So bringing it back to, we want to get the right people in the right seats for the right reasons to do the right work. So I hope that answered the question, but I'll flip it over to take us to that next point.
Awesome. Yeah. So hiring too quickly, hiring too slowly, hiring poorly. We've all had the privilege of being part of an organization where it was a phenomenal team. It was amazing, amazing people. And your people can really carry you through some really challenging times because they build a culture of their own. The next mistake that we see is neglecting systems and processes, and this kind of ties to when you're hiring too quickly and you're hiring poorly. One of the things Kirk does with our clients is he teaches them a specific process for hiring, how to use a hiring scorecard, how to write a job description to attract the right people and repel the wrong people. And it blesses my heart because Kirk approaches writing a job posting the way that I do a a sales page or sales copy. So neglecting systems and processes, everything in your business has to become a system or process. And I want to differentiate between two things. There's running your business in a way where you don't have systems, you don't have processes. What you're really doing is your everything hinges on you. It comes from you, through you, everything comes to you, all the problems, because you don't have systems. You don't have a process for when a problem happens. What does your team do when something goes well? A deal comes through. What does the team do? We have a process for everything we do. We continue to build processes, and we teach our clients to do the same thing because it allows your business to run with the level of efficiency that it needs to. And Heather, who's not on the call today, but Heather is our head of operations. When she goes in with the client, she assesses their systems, she assesses their processes, and maps it all out because you have marketing and sales processes and systems. You have, and systems, we typically mean software systems, or a connection of softwares that work together. You got marketing and sales, you have finance and accounting, you have all of your operations, you have your people. Uh, what's your process, what's your system in place if you need to take disciplinary action with the team member? How do you go about doing that? Because scaling without systems means everything depends on people, and your greatest asset in business is also your greatest liability in business, which is your people. So if everything in your business relies on a person, they come into work and they're tired, they're having a bad day, that system gets thrown off. So you want to really, it's about eliminating as much potential for human error as possible. And for many of you, you are in the trades and home services space. An error can mean injury. It can mean a lawsuit. It can be very dramatic and very um, detrimental to your business. And with that, I'll let the team speak on that as well from what we've seen, but incredibly important.
Yeah, I'll jump in right here because this is very fresh. This is probably last week or the week before, but this is a $5 million business that, quite frankly, has been predicated on a solopreneur that has a team around him. The reality is that they have not been faithful in taking everything that's in his head and putting it into process to be duplicated. We have a situation where they have a leadership team of, I believe it's 5 or 6, and everybody is very adverse to the fear of failing in putting processes down on paper. I don't know if any of you identify with that same struggle, but at the same time, this person is about a month and a half away from leaving. And so everything that is in this stakeholder's head needs to come out. And quite frankly, it needs to come out across the organization. But this department specifically is about 30% of the revenue of the business. And so if this person were to walk out, we're talking about a third of the business essentially walking out with a limp, if you will. And so I'll say this, it's not about knowing how to do everything that you need to do. It's about knowing where to get the answers that you need to implement on. Over the course of the last week and a half or so, we've introduced best practice execution plan decks to them so they can start to chart out and have kind of a mind map for the processes that they do every day intuitively, but now we're going to put it into documented processes so they can pass it on to the next generation of leadership inside of the organization. So I say all that to say that you can grow a lot almost in spite of yourself, but it's not that you grow in spite of yourself and you can keep doing that. You can grow in spite of yourself, but you cannot scale in spite of yourself. You have to implement the systems and processes that have gotten you from 0 to 1, 1 to 4, 1 to 5, 5 to 10. Otherwise, you will collapse on yourself.
Take note of that. You can grow in spite of yourself, but you cannot continue to scale in spite of yourself. I mean, you're just tripping over all the mistakes that you're making, and that becomes really frustrating. And I want to encourage all of you, depending on your business size, wherever your business size, really, some of you need to go back and you need to go. We talk about 4 phases of growth. You need to go back to the first phase, which is the foundation, and fix the foundation. Figure out how you got to the place where everything is dependent on you because you lack systems and processes, or you have processes that are dependent on a person, and as that person leaves, they can take your entire business with them. Like, who owns the relationship with the clients? Do you have a system and process in place to offboard a salesperson so they don't take the relationships with them? Things like that. Some of you are at a place where it's early enough that you can start to identify and fix these things now. And you absolutely should, because problems are harder to fix when they're bigger. You're either scaling what you're doing well or you're scaling what you're doing wrong. And really, in reality, you're doing a combination of both. But ideally, 80% of what you're scaling is things you're doing right. And then you're working on fixing the things you're doing wrong. So, mistake number 4, this is seems obvious, but it's still surprises me at times how many business owners focus on revenue, not profit. Let's scale a revenue. Let's get to a bigger revenue. And we did a training inside of, we have a pro coaching program for our clients called Phase 4, where we walk them through exactly how to scale their business through the 8 frameworks that we teach. And one of the things that we found is that often the solution that business owners think they need to execute in order to scale their business is more revenue. If there's not enough cash in the bank at the end of the month, more revenue. If we don't have enough clients, more revenue. And it's not the solution. There's actually an equation that CFOs, business leaders use to understand where to grow business, what aspect of the business really needs to be grown. And we teach that, but it all comes down to understanding your revenue and profit are not the same. In order, and I'll let Tim speak to this because he'll add additional insight to it from a finance perspective. And really, finance, if you have a good finance person, they think in strategy, not just money. They think overall strategy and risk, calculation, mitigation, all that cool stuff. When you want to scale your business, you can't scale a business based on revenue. Revenue is how much money you brought in. You scale a business based on how much money you keep that you can put back into the business, whether that's to increase the volume of your leads and your clients, or it's to expand, buy equipment. You don't buy equipment, you don't hire new people with revenue. You do that with profit. If you have no profit, or you scale your revenue, but you're not watching your costs, you end up scaling your costs at the same time as your revenue, which means you didn't make any more profit. And in reality, and Tim can speak to this, you typically don't scale your revenue and your costs at the same rate. If your cost is not, if you're not decreasing your cost or keeping your costs stable, when you increase your revenue, your costs will actually start to increase faster than the pace of your revenue. So the more revenue, law of diminishing returns, the more revenue you make, the less profit you end up having. I'll leave it at that, and I'll let Tim give you some additional insights into that.
I
You've
think the
taught me well, sir.
only I think the only adjustment I'd make is it's not only focusing on just the revenue, and not really the profit. It's really the capital. Again, as business owners, you're leveraging capital, whether human capital, soft capital, cash capital, your hard equipment capital, in order to generate cash, which is another form of capital. Again, you're running it through the business, you're producing revenue, and you're paying out costs in pursuit of that revenue. But really, what you want to be focusing on in order to grow is your ability to leverage, whether or not it's your employees or the knowledge that you have or the knowledge your employees have or the leverage of your equipment, but it's leveraging the capital that you have in your business in order to grow. That's how you rapidly, or that's really how you grow really fast. It's understanding what leverage am I pushing? Am I leveraging employees in order to drive more revenue? Am I leveraging my system in order to drive more revenue, and understanding how that flows through the business? Again, you can have more sales and actually generate less positive cash flow because of the cost relationship or the cost structure that you have in certain revenue streams, which is why understanding what your numbers are, what your metrics are, and that's one of the points later on, but understanding what your metrics are, with not only the products, but also your revenue stream, helps you understand where you should grow and how you can grow. Again, you can push more sales and have a negative cash expectancy, as long as you have an unlimited source of capital to offset, right? You have, again, Amazon ran for almost 10 years losing money. Why? They had investors that kept investing into the business because they believed in the vision. Not everyone has that ability. So understanding the capital and how capital is growing your business allows you to take more risk in your business and push that leverage elsewhere to grow. Back to you, AJ.
Awesome. I love that. Love that. And like you guys can see, there's growing a business isn't complicated, but there, and also I say this being a business owner and knowing this to be true, I'll be the first to say there is so much when I started my first business and multiple businesses after that I didn't know. And every business I learned something new, had some more success and gained insight. And then working with business owners, gain even more. You're good at what you sell. It doesn't mean, and you're not necessarily good at growing and scaling a business. So we just had a client come on board, and they are a $30 million business, and they've grown rapidly over the last 4 years from startup to 30 million. It's been incredible. But they recognized in this last, really toward the end of last year, coming into this year, they recognized that they had hit the cap of their knowledge of how to grow. They were starting to run into problems. They had enough wisdom and foresight to look at the business and recognize we are growing so fast. We have so much opportunity, but we're missing systems, we're missing process, we're going to things are going to start breaking down. And so that's where they reached out. We had a conversation, and we're going to help them implement those things to fortify the structure. Another one of the phases of growth that we talk about and that we teach, they're going to fortify their structure so they can continue to grow and support the scale that they want to see inside of their business. So it's incredibly important to recognize that within your business and make sure that you have those things in place. The fifth mistake, we're at the halfway mark. The fifth mistake that we see business owners making is underpricing their services. This is I want to add clarity to this because there's different financial strategies to this, different ways to approach it. And ethically, we're big believers in you want to ideally be premium priced, so you're getting the most for what you do, but you also want to understand where the market is at as well. So I'll say it this way: we've had clients who lost profit simply because their costs increased, which is normal, but they never increased their prices. Their cost wasn't necessarily too high, but it just by nature of the market, supply chains, a lot of business owners saw this during COVID. So the cost of everything went sky high, and they didn't have protections in place. If you're in construction, you know that you need to have an escalation clause inside of your contract that says in the course of a, let's say, 12-month project, if the cost of materials increases, the client is going to absorb that cost, not you absorbing that cost, because you absorb that by losing it in the form of profit. So underpricing your services, and this also comes to a partly a psychology. One of our clients, they were charging decent prices for what they did, but really still undervaluing it. So what we had them do is we had them grow, or they grew by like 60% in their revenue last year. All we had them do was increase their prices and then create a new package with a higher price point that added more value. And actually, I want to ask because they're here on the call. I want it's one thing for me to say it; it's a whole other thing for them to say it. So I want to Matt and Ashron here. I want to invite either one of them. You guys, let me know who wants to speak. What was tell give us your side of that experience and pricing too low, then increasing your prices. Okay, Asha, Matt, Asha voluntold you. So Matt's gonna get himself unmuted.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I should just threw me under the bus, but all in good ways. So, what was the question again?
What was the give us your experience before and after working with us where we increased your prices, created a new package? What's been the impact of that? Like why did you guys price too low? Was it lack of confidence, lack of awareness? And then what's been the impact of increasing your prices?
Yeah, I mean, oh my gosh, so many variables. So, I already thought we were charging a pretty good price for what we did, but that was me undervaluing what I felt our services were worth and what people would pay. We were also going after the wrong businesses. We were trying to stay small, so we were going after businesses that were staying small and not going after the bigger businesses that were willing to pay more. We had a couple of those guys, but not like the bulk of our work was not through those guys. So it was really my belief lid. I didn't know that we could actually charge more. And so then when you came in, we really respect you, AJ, and the rest of the team. And then when you guys came in and told us like, hey, what you guys are doing is actually worth far more than what you're charging because of these reasons, you actually helped us sell better because we were able to display the value of what we do, not just order takers, but experts in what we do. And that allowed us to charge more for what we do because we're bringing more value to our clients and generating more revenue for them in that process. And then just the fact that you believed in us. I mean, it's funny to say, but that was a lot of it too, was just like, oh man, like this team actually sees what we wanted to see, but we just don't know because we don't have friends in this space. Like we're kind of by ourselves, so we don't know what other people are charging. We're way more expensive already before you guys came around, versus the other developers and marketers out there that charge pennies. So it was a big change in mindset. And then the moment we started applying that language that you taught us how to apply and say and sell ourselves, clients bit. They knew what we could do. They saw it. We proved ourselves. We prove ourselves every single day. Our service is what keeps them coming back. And it was just like that was what it took, is just us believing in ourselves and you guys believing in us. So it changed massively. Now we don't even we don't even service hourly clients anymore. It's all you have to pay monthly to be with us. We charge far more, and it's just been fantastic.
And that's awesome. And it always blesses my heart to hear it. And we're proud of you guys because it takes a lot of trust to do things that you haven't done before. And you hit it on the head. A lot of times when as business owners you're not charging enough, it's because you see the value based on your perspective. But if I'm hydrated, I'm good to go. I'm in my house. I got the AC on. A glass of water doesn't have the same value to me as the person who's been outside for 5 hours walking in the heat. And often we look at it from our perspective, and we need someone with an outside perspective to look and say, "Hey, that person's really thirsty. Like they'll give you $100 for a glass of water." Now, I'm not advocating you do that. If you're doing that, you're just being a jerk. But the principle still applies. You want to look from the perspective of your clients, not your own perspective, because you are selling based on how your clients value what you are selling, not how you value it. Because the truth is, we're so familiar with what we do that we don't always value it. And what's important as well is to get feedback from your clients. Part of the reason why I wanted to hear from you guys directly is for folks watching this on the recording or YouTube or live, wherever, to not only hear us say it, but hear it from an actual client. But also, it's a good reminder for me of the value of what we do so we don't forget. Like we need to hear those stories. And for all of you as business owners, you should be collecting testimonials. And then when you're in a rough spot, go back and read your testimonials. What have clients said? How have you transformed their life, transformed their business? I mean, what you offer should be transformational. If it's just transactional, well, then you're just focused on the short-term revenue gain and the profit. You're not focused on the long-term relationship. And the true currency of business is relationship. So, Matt, Osh, we're proud of you guys, and we're excited because we're going to a whole nother level this year. This is going to be a record-breaking year for you guys. All right, mistake number 7. This one, all of these they don't surprise anymore, but still, the degree to which it happens, you don't know what you don't know as a business owner. You're good at the thing you sell typically, but you don't necessarily know the things you don't know. So, mistake number. Oh, actually, we're on number 6.
Hey, yeah, I didn't want to rob the people of six. I didn't know if that was some sort of cliffhanger that you were doing from a marketing spin, but let's stick with six before we outsource to seven.
All right. Mistake number 6 is not delegating or letting go. Not delegating or letting go. If everything has to go through you, and we kind of touched on this earlier, I think it was mistake number 2 and 3 with hiring and systems and processes. If everything has to go through you, your business is going to hit a ceiling fast because you as an individual, as a business owner, you only have so much capacity. There's only so much that you can do. And this is where we get the term bottleneck. The whole idea of a bottleneck is that the capacity for flow through that bottleneck is limited. And when you have a bottle, the most narrow part of the bottle is the neck. And it limits the flow. I mean, it's like trying to chug a cup versus drinking out of a bottle. It's very different. The flow of your business is the same. So you have to ask yourself the honest question: are you the reason why your business output and production, whether it's revenue, profit, projects, the capacity is limited? You've got to get out of the way. You have to hire people smarter than yourself. In fact, Kirk this morning sent me an Instagram reel of Marcus Lemonis, and Marcus Lemonis, he's the antithesis of ostentatious. You look at him, he looks like your neighbor who has a bunch of cats. Like, I respect Marcus Lemonis, so I'm not poking fun at him at all, but he just looks like a normal guy, like very unassuming. Unless you really pay attention to the details, like what he's wearing and things like that. But he's not an ostentatious guy. But his companies, he really became more well known publicly for the show The Profit that he did, where he'd go in, he'd invest in a business, he'd fix it. I started rewatching it, love the show. It's a lot of great business insights, and especially for us working in the consulting space, seeing how business owners interact. But his companies did $980 million at their peak, and that's profit. 980 million in profit, not even revenue. I don't even know what the revenue was. It was billions. And the interviewer asked him, what would you say in 60 seconds to give advice to other business owners? And the very first thing he said was delegate. You have to delegate, and he specifically said delegate and hire people smarter than you. If you are the smartest person in your business, you are the dumbest person in your business, because you're not smart enough to realize you need to hire people smarter than you. That sounds harsh, but we're not here to make you feel good. We're here to give you what you need to actually scale and grow your business. And our clients know this. We tell it to them straight, because if you truly love people, you will give them the truth. You should not be the smartest person in your business. I am not the smartest person in my business. My team laughs every time I say that, because I also get made fun of a lot because we have a great relationship. But Tim, when it comes to finance and the strategy and that perspective, risk, is much smarter than I am. Kirk, when it comes to people, much smarter than I am. Heather, my wife, our head of operations, when it comes to operations and systems, much smarter than I am. I am the smartest at the thing that I do, but I need other people who are smarter than me in other areas. And that's how you build a great team. And that's how you scale a business. And then their job is to hire people smarter than them. So I want to pitch it over to Kirk. What have you seen? Because Kirk's we're with thousands of business owners. When it comes to hiring people smarter, what gets in the way? Why do business owners avoid it? Why do they not? Why do they hire yes men and yes women instead of hiring really smarter people?
I actually think I saw Asha mouth it. um, the biggest bottleneck to hiring smarter people, it's three letters: ego. It is hard to have taken all the risk, gone through the agita and the heartache of starting and growing a business to where it is, and then hiring somebody smarter than you, whether it's in one area or every area. It is terrifying. And I want to acknowledge that it's easy if you're a great salesperson or a technician or an operations person to hire someone way better in finance that you know very little about, or hire somebody in marketing that you know very little about. It's a whole different ballgame when you are trying to outsource or delegate the technical side or the sales side, when those are the things that you've tied your business ownership identity to. And now you've got a top performer that wants to join your mission, sees your vision, and sees not only your vision, but sees their own success within the success of your business. That's a gold mine. And I would say that a lot of times, and I've sat in the background of these interviews, many of them, They get to the end of that interview, and I'm thinking, this is a remarkable candidate. They're humble and hungry. And I'll sit with the stakeholder, and they will, without even blinking an eye, it's that person seems like they're too caught in themselves. They think that they're the best thing since sliced bread. Well, the reality is that that's not the case. And I look at emotional intelligence every day, and I will tell you 100% that a lot of times when they are meeting that own resistance in themselves, it has to go back to their ego. If you're the smartest person in the room, every time you enter a room, you're in the wrong room. So we develop with our clients the top performer delegation plan. It's not about uh, making them better performers in what they're doing. It's if you're the top performer as the business owner from a technical standpoint, let's pull that out of your head. Uh, let's mind map it, if you will. So somebody that is more junior than you can pull themselves up. They can see a path to going from a tech 1 to a tech 2 to a 3 to a 4, and ultimately gaining mastery over that. There's also an intimidation that the top performers in your business, the non-equity holders, are going to always be the top performers in that given field. The best performers are not always the best leaders, and vice versa. In order to lead, you have to be able to chart a path and then inspire action. To be the best leader, you have to be able to chart a path and inspire. So it really comes down to how are you delegating in order to elevate. As an owner, you started at the top of the org chart, but unless you delegate, you will remain in the same spot while hiring the future leaders of your organization if you're not continuing to grow. So whether it's yourself as the top performer, technically or operationally, financially, or marketing, map that out. Get it in a best practice execution plan to where somebody can follow and draft behind you, or they will leave you. If somebody sees that you are the lid to their ability to grow, they will leave you. That's not hyperbole. That's not being dramatic. I think you can very easily look at close to 10 examples on this call of people that outgrew their leadership. Don't be the business owner sitting with the bag when someone outgrows your leadership. Delegate so you can elevate. Delegation is the only way to elevate your leadership and elevate the performance and profitability of your business.
Love it. Delegate to elevate. Hopefully you guys are taking notes. Go back and watch this on YouTube too, and write these things down. Like post them up somewhere for yourself as reminders, so you can really be focused on these things. And I want to repeat the quote, Kirk, that you said: "To be the best leader, you have to be able to chart a path and inspire action." So much of that of leadership is just doing that. So we're gonna blaze through the last four mistakes. Mistake number 7 is ignoring data and metrics. When you're making decisions without real numbers, we like to use the analogy of flying a plane. As a business owner, you're flying a plane. The plane is your business. You are the pilot. As a business owner, you have the people in the back, your employees, clients, and customers. You've got your team. That's the staff on the plane. Your dashboard, all of your instruments. That's your data. And I said it to really learn something new about it as I was talking to a client about this. I said at a certain elevation, if you're flying a real small plane, small business, you can fly without having all of that data. You can just look out over the horizon and you can see where you're at, you can see where you're going, you can navigate just by eyesight, which is why smaller planes that only fly at an elevation of 13, 14,000 feet, they don't have nearly as many instruments. They don't even necessarily have radar. You have your instruments to tell you your yaw, your pitch, your altitude, things like that. But you don't have all of the other instruments that a commercial airliner would have. So if you think of it in levels, at 13, 14,000 feet, that's a smaller plane, fewer instruments. At 20, 15, at about 20, 25,000 feet, then you have your Learjet, your private jet. That's going to have more instruments. But a commercial airliner flies at 30,000 feet. At 30,000 feet, more often than not, they are flying blind. All you can see outside is cloud cover. If it's at night, it's just pure black. We've all flown in airplanes and looked out and had the thought to ourselves, I have no idea where I am. And if this plane goes down, like I'm relying on this big metal tube to keep me from disappearing into oblivion. They have to rely on their instruments, and they're constantly course correcting, because when you're flying, it's never a straight path. Like there's so many analogies you make between flying a plane and growing a business. Everything is always shifting. The earth below the plane is shifting, it's rotating. So this is how we look at data. And my line has always been, data helps us understand the past so we can predict the future. You can literally predict where your business is going and how to get there. You can set targets when you have real numbers and real data. And this is something we always look at. In fact, when we engage with the client, the very first thing we do is we gather the data. And I'll let Tim speak to this, because we don't just gather random data. There's specific data we gather to understand the story of where the business has been, where it's at, and how it got there. And that's typically the financial data. So I'll kick it over to Tim to give you some insights on, just at a real base level, what should you be looking at every day?
So every day we want to be looking at, from a financial standing, you want to be looking at cash collection. But ultimately, it's the cash position and changing that cash position. What's coming in, what's going out. So many business owners just focus on cash collection. It's much more important to focus on what cash is going out the door, right? How is that changing on a day by day basis? Because then you have an understanding. If you understand what's going out the door, that's the number one thing you can control, is what's leaving your business. From there, you can influence your customers to bring cash in the door quicker, particularly around those days that on a given month, right? Payroll days, that you're going to have a larger than normal outflow of cash. A lot of the other numbers we really want to be looking at on a daily basis, particularly, is what's the driver of your business, the operational flow. What do I do in my business, and what does that track on a day by day business tracking system? The reason for that, again, if you do construction software or construction, or you're in the technician field, looking at how much revenue I'm producing on a day by day basis tells you, or completing on a day by day basis tells you, the efficiency of staff and whether or not there's changes in staff production on any given day. Some of the other key pieces we want to be looking at on a weekly basis, and again, because there's daily key pieces of information, weekly key pieces, and monthly key pieces. But on a weekly basis, it's the exact same numbers, but it's understanding not only how that interacts on a daily basis, but on a weekly basis, how does that influence not only the cost structure, the P&L changes, but also looking at, okay, what's happening from a leadership standpoint? How am I spending my time? Again, the time component in any business, how is the leadership team investing in the staff, and how are we investing in this quarter, but also the future quarters, in order to understand what's happening in the business? I know we're running short on time, but the last thing, again, when a client kicks off with us, one of the first things we look at is we do a financial audit, and we look at month over month or quarter over quarter growth. What's happening in the business for the past 3 years? What major changes have occurred, not only in the revenue streams and the revenue cycles, but also the operational data? And we do a side by side comparison, so we have an understanding of what you sell, how you sell it, and why you sell it. But we also can do that comparison of looking at, okay, what's happening in the business, not only operationally, but financially, and making sure we can align the stories. Because again, how we grow is we look at what levers, going back to the growth and scaling equation, we look at what levers, where's our source of capital? Is it coming from our knowledge, or is it coming from positive cash flow? or in order to grow, even break a positive expectancy, we have to produce more revenue in order to even have positive cash flow. It's understanding the data, again, understanding your historical data or the current data. What's going on currently allows us to predict in the future, whether it's just 2 weeks in the future. That allows us to make better informed decisions and have an expectancy with our decisions so we can have a risk assumption and we can make better decisions moving forward. And kick it back to AJ.
All right. Yeah, so a lot there, and what I hope you guys hear Tim saying. Some of you, honestly, when the first time I heard conversations like this as a business owner, I didn't know everything I was hearing. But I hope what you take away is that when you understand how to look at the data, here's the great thing about data. When you understand how to look at it, it tells you the questions to ask about the data you're looking at and what other data you need to find to better understand the story. And if it feels intimidating, understand you already do this. You do it with your kids, you do it with your spouse, you do it with your family members. You're always collecting data. And Matt, think about driving down the highway at 60, 70, 80 miles an hour. How much data your brain is processing? Cars that are passing, cars that are crossing, looking a mile ahead. Some of us, we drive better than others. Some of us are looking miles ahead. Some of us are looking right in front of us. I'm not going to judge anyone's driving, but we know how that goes. Grandma shouldn't be driving anymore. She shouldn't have a driver, have one of the grandkids drive her. But you are collecting all this data constantly, and we're assessing where we're at in relation to everything else. So you can do this inside of your business. And I give you that analogy so that you understand it's not as scary as it seems. You already do it. You just don't do it as intentionally as you need to do it inside of your business. But when you do, you'll start to see your business in a whole different way. And then it becomes this fun game of pulling levers and pushing buttons to completely change the trajectory of where your business is going. And another line that I like to say is small adjustments affect big changes. It can be a tiny adjustment. With the Mintons, all we did was adjust their pricing. And from that simple adjustment, it increased their revenue very significantly. And then we did all the other things to support it. So moving on to mistake number 8. This one's going to sting a little bit. And if it stings you, it might be you, but it's okay because you're here in Business Builders and we can tell you how to fix it. Weak leadership. Now, I want to say this. Weak leadership is not the same as bad leadership. Weak leadership is not the same. Being a leader who is not as strong because you're not as practiced is not the same as being a leader who falls up the stairs. I'm just saying it's not the same. Weak leadership can be inexperience. It can be lack of practice. It can be lack of skill set. But bad leadership is someone who just doesn't want to grow. That's a fixed mindset. That is someone who isn't committed to their people. And growth demands that you have strong leadership because without it, your team lacks clarity. What are we doing? Where are we going? They lack direction. How do we get there? And they lack motivation. I've seen leaders who are very young in business, very young in life, still be phenomenal leaders. Because really, it's about people. How well can you connect and be transparent, be vulnerable, and love people? I bring it all to that. The word I like to use is compassion. When you look at the root word and you break down the word compassion to the Latin, the word compassion literally means to suffer with. If you want to be a great leader, learn to suffer with your people. Understand what they're going through. Understand your clients, what they're going through, what's their experience. Well, I know when we're proposing to a client to work with us and we're telling them, here's what we can help with, here's what we can do, here's the investment. I've been in that seat when someone told me an investment that was more than anything I'd ever invested before. I know what it feels like to make the risk to hire a coach or hire consultants and know that it may not work out and not have the guarantee that I would like to have. So when we talk to clients, we speak to that because we understand it. And I heard Myron Golden say it well. You have to love the people you serve so much that you would never sell them anything that would do them harm. If you want to be a great leader, start there. I take that example from Jesus himself, the greatest leader who's ever lived. John Maxwell is the foremost expert on leadership, and that's where he gets all his leadership principles from as well, and he'll openly say that. So find the sources, find the examples, the models that you can follow in leadership, and start loving your people more. Bad leaders, Show me someone who's a bad leader. I'll show you someone who doesn't care about people. They don't love their people. They don't love their clients. They don't care about their experience. Show me someone who's a great leader, and I'll show you someone who gets choked up every time an employee has a win or gets a promotion or a client talks about a transformation. So weak leadership is the eighth mistake that business owners make. I'm going to jump to number 9, failing to adapt. This is a big one. We're in the age of social media, and I was literally talking to Kirk about this before today's business builders call, and we were talking about what the content and the topics we're going to talk about next month, and just the approach, because our goal this year is to really grow on YouTube. So if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, like if you found value in this. Stay tuned every week, every for every business builders episode. But it's to grow and build a bigger audience so we can help more people. The training we do on business builders is free, and then there's so many resources that we give that are free. We're launching a new community, and we're putting a $5,000 course in that community that's completely free. There's no cost on it. You join the group, you get access to it. If you want to know about that, leave a comment on YouTube, drop a comment here. If you're watching on Zoom or Facebook, wherever you are, that's going to be launching soon. Our team will reach out to you, give you the link for it. There's no cost to it. You're going to get strategies. Imagine what you're getting here, but much more in depth, specific to the different areas of your business. And the reason we do that is because we realize, to reach more people, it's not about networking events, it's not about even hosting live events. People are on YouTube, they're looking for information, they're looking for help, they're going online. So we are constantly adapting to meet people where they're at, not trying to force people to receive value the way that we want to give it. You've got to adapt, you've got to pivot, and you've got to make those decisions, because that the strategy that got you here, you've heard this said before, the strategy that got you here isn't the strategy that'll get you there. Algorithms change, the market changes. A lot of you as business owners, you saw that as soon as Trump took office, or really as soon as he won the election, things started to shift because people shift. So politics will impact the marketplace. Right now, geopolitical things will impact the marketplace. What's happening with Tesla? Their stock is going down. People are vandalizing the vehicles. That affects the stock market, which means if you have investments, it could be impacting yours. It could impact your business. It can impact the way people buy. If you're you do auto service and you specialize in Teslas, your business was impacted. So you've got to pay attention to what's going on in the world around you, the marketplace, and all of it. It all breaks down to one word: psychology. How people think and how they buy. People's buying patterns change when they perceive that the environment has changed. When COVID hit in 2020, a lot of business owners had a great year in 2019. 2020 came, I think it was January. It's quarter 1 of 2020 when it was announced as a pandemic, and so many things changed. So many businesses went belly up. The way people shopped changed. I wish I could go back and buy $10,000 worth of stock in Zoom because Zoom shot up its valuation because people couldn't go out. But Zoom was ready for it, even though I would say they capitalized on it, even though they weren't necessarily and they were ready for it, but they weren't expecting it. So as a business, think about what are the factors in the greater marketplace in the world that impact your business. Think your industry, think adjacent industries. So if you are a home builder or anything in construction really where you buy supplies, what impacts if you go down the line, what impacts that? Tariffs can impact that depending where you get your supplies from. If you're getting things overseas, are you sourcing them domestically? And where are they getting it from? You start to think through these things, and that's where your perspective as a business owner becomes much broader, and you start to pay attention to the rumblings and the grumblings in the world, and you're prepared to adapt. Tim will say, this is why you need to have lots of cash on hand. This is why you have to look at your data, why you have to have a financial uh, visibility, because we had clients who didn't struggle as much through COVID because they had the cash on hand to weather the storm and make pivots. I have a good friend who he is a professional speaker, and I did some coaching with him on his brand. And one of the things I told him was, you need to leverage social media. You need to look to do more things online. COVID hit, all of his gigs, all of his speaking gigs. He was ready to have his biggest year ever, and then 80% of them canceled because they couldn't meet. He reached out to them and said, why don't we just do it virtually? And he still had his biggest year ever because he was ready to pivot. So where do you need to pivot? Where do you need to adapt? And that can look like software, technology. If you've got salespeople and they write everything down on a pen and pad, it's time to adapt, time to go digital, time to track things. There's lots of reasons for it. Kirk and Tim, I want to open it up to you guys. Where are some specific areas that we've seen or that you see business owners tend to have resistance or friction when it comes to adapting?
Well, I'll speak from my area of the business. It's a lot of times when it comes to people, you close your eyes and hope it goes away. Or like a child, you cover your eyes and pretend it doesn't exist. And a lot of times that is people that are struggling in your business. Uh, it's it's either people struggling personally or professionally inside of your business. And I will tell everybody that I know, and we had this conversation actually last week with a client that they were saying, hey, there's a lot of pressure. We've got around 100 people in our business. And I said, you know, not to put more pressure on you, but statistically, you're responsible for just under 500 people, families that are attached to each one of your team members. If we don't address the things that they are struggling with, that they are dealing with on a daily basis, it's as if we are losing sales and ignoring the strategy. I will say that because people fall under this
Anaya,
large blanket of the softer side of business, it's easy to
come here,
say,
please.
well, there's more people that are looking for jobs out there. There are always good people looking for good opportunities. These are the buzz phrases that we tell
You
ourselves.
put ice water in
The reality
I
is
could,
that
ooh, curls.
you're building a reputation for or
Oop.
against yourself. Every interaction, every one-on-one, every performance review, every disciplinary journey that you're taking an employee through, every piece and part of that employee life cycle is a reflection of your leadership. So where I find most business owners, and I'll broaden it. I'll say business leaders, key stakeholders in the business are they do not have their finger on the pulse of their people, and then they wonder why they die out.
So,
I think from
oh, go
I think
ahead, Tim.
from my point, I keep thinking about the phrase which we hear a lot when we go on site in that first 2 or 3 days of a contract. Well, we've always done it that way. Again, because oftentimes during those couple of days, my answer or question almost to any answer I get is why. Why do we do it this way? Why is this the outcome that we expect? And oftentimes when you fail to adapt, it's because, well, this has been working. But again, there's a fine point to this failing to adapt, because you could also adapt too quickly and you
Good gun
don't
right there.
capitalize on the opportunity that exists, and understanding where the weakness is in your market, and understanding I need to pivot, but I need to pivot in the right way, in the right manner, at the right time. And so failing to adapt just because something is working now doesn't mean it won't work in the future. So it's understanding, do I need to adapt now or do I need to adapt in the future? Again, you can have weakness in your business and still have positive cash flow. Blockbuster existed for years after Netflix. And again, they had the opportunity to buy Netflix and they didn't adapt to the changing market. They still existed for quite a while, but they failed to adapt, which is why they went out of business after the market shifted, why we have a million streaming services now and you can't just have one. So again, failing to adapt is understanding and having a curiosity for why is someone else having success? but also understanding that I am still potentially having success and my opportunity still exists where I am, but it's understanding I will need to pivot soon and being able to have the cash flow or the capital available to weather the storm so that you can find the right place to pivot to. Again, oftentimes as business leaders, not just the business owners, as business leaders, we fail to capitalize on the time that we have available to make a decision, and that's often the biggest mistake we have.
Well said. And I love that Tim brings up the example of Netflix, because Netflix today has a market cap of $421 billion. $421 billion. And the interesting thing is, Blockbuster could have purchased them, and this was the CEO's fault at the time, could have purchased Netflix for $50 million and multiplied that. But so them not adapting was a huge loss, huge mistake. But I fully believe, because of that limited mindset, they would have crashed and burned it anyway. Because the fact that Blockbuster never adapted, they would have never bought Netflix, and even if they had, they would have ruined it because of their inability and unwillingness to adapt. On the flip side, the founders of Netflix were short-sighted, because they had done something that was innovative. But when you're innovating, you're changing something, you're finding a new way to do it, you've got to educate the market. There's going to be some friction, there's going to be some time, and if you're willing to stick with it and be really strategic, you can accomplish what Netflix accomplished. You can accomplish that or something similar in exponential growth and changing the way that something is done in a space or in an industry. And Kirk and I were talking about this today, and there's a book that called "If It Ain't Broke, Break It," by a guy named Robert Kriegel. And it's the idea that, and it's the antithesis of the phrase "If it ain't broke, don't fix it." Well, that doesn't work in business. The whole idea, the whole premise behind that thought process is, if something works, just let it be. But that's not how the world works today. You have to innovate, because we went through um, the industrial age, then we went through the age of invention, and then the innovation. Now we're in the age of information. So you have to adapt. You have to pivot. There's very little today that hasn't been invented, that isn't known. Elon Musk didn't invent the electric car. He innovated it. Netflix didn't invent the idea of watching movies. They innovated it. So within your space, what's the next iteration or innovation that you can pivot to or you can leverage? AI is one that a lot of people are looking at right now. How do you leverage AI? We use it internally for a lot of different processes, and it saves hours and hours of time. We're able to do things really quickly for clients, because we can dump our knowledge into Chat GPT and pump out what we need in a much shorter time frame, and then still have it be quality, so we can have it do a lot of the grunt work for us. And it literally saves me personally at least six or so hours a week in time that I would spend doing a lot of things that I can just get done much faster. Analyzing data, we use it for a lot of that. Analyzing data, getting reports, recognizing patterns in businesses. So you if it's just because it's working doesn't mean it doesn't need to be innovated. So there's a process of always looking for, what can we break, what can we test, what's going really well, let's look for how that could break, let's mess with it. And that's how you get Tesla, that's how you get SpaceX. I mean, NASA couldn't figure out how to go and get two astronauts from the space station for uh almost 300 days. Elon Musk, in a week, went and got him and brought him back. Like, that's innovation. That's someone who looks at what is and says, well, what can be? Could we do it better? Well, it's not broken. Don't fix it. Screw that. I want to find a better way to do it. I think it could be done better. That's what we do at All True. We're trying to flip the business consulting world on its head and do it better. Where, I'm going to give a little blurb for All True, so you know that we practice what we preach. In the space of business consulting, there are the marketing agencies that help you with your marketing, there's sales agencies that help you with sales, then there are the small business coaches, who one or two people that come in and give you general knowledge. Then you have on the other side end of the spectrum, you have the big consulting firms, McKinsey, Bain and Co, BMG. They're enterprise level. If you're not 500 million plus, they won't even look at you. It's not enough revenue for them. Plus, what they teach at that level of business growth doesn't make sense for all of you and all of us small business owners who are be under 20 or under 100 million. But because the All True team, we've all worked in companies that size and bigger, and we've worked with so many different business owners, and we've gained all of this knowledge, and we've been able to create results within our respective disciplines. We, the idea and the vision I had for All True was to pull together a team of different disciplines that cover all functions of business, and take that knowledge, enterprise level business consulting, and make it and package it so that it is available and accessible for small business owners who otherwise struggle to get this knowledge. There, I would challenge you to find another program or team that will teach you the things that we teach and do it effectively and it has the track record. That's how we're innovating, because we're fighting for small businesses. 80% of the jobs in America are come from small businesses like yours. Most of those small businesses are family owned, and that's the way that America was built. Family owned small businesses. So that's part of our mission, is to keep that alive, because we know that when the big corporations come in, they can throw an industry off and cost a lot of jobs. That's a whole different discussion. That would be fun to have, but we're not going to have that today. So the last mistake that business owners are making, Kirk's going to drop it here in the chat. There are 10 mistakes, but these are not all the mistakes. But this one can really be the linchpin to everything. You can do so many things wrong in business, and you will, but if you get this thing right, your business will be fine. You can survive. The number 10 mistake, which really we didn't do these in order of priority, but I would say this is the most important one, is neglecting culture and team health. Because as you're growing fast, you can destroy your culture. We've seen this happen from the inside out in organizations we've been a part of, growing so fast, and without strong leadership, a healthy team, your growth becomes unsustainable. And here's why: you don't grow a business, your systems and processes don't grow business. People that run those systems, build those processes, grow your business. So if you grow so fast that you're putting unsurmountable pressure on your people, and higher and higher demands, and a lack of support, it's like running a team and never giving them a break, never giving them time to breathe, to recoup. This is why I don't. The team has barred me from using sports analogies, so I'll use an analogy from a sport that I know, which is fighting. Professional fighters, especially if it's UFC, and in boxing, they would only fight once every few months, like once every 3 months, because you have to train, you have your fight, and then you have to recover. I mean, you're getting the crap beaten out of you. Like, that's your job. Go in there and get beat up, and just beat the other guy up more than he beat you up. And whoever gets beat up the least, or whoever gives up first loses, and then the other guy wins. So you have to recover. Too often, what we do in business is we run, 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 and then we just keep running, running, running. And then what happens is the growth outpaces our ability to break and rebuild and fix things in the business. And now what we're doing is we're duct taping it together. We're putting wires on it. I mean, when I was growing up, one of my mentors, my best friend's dad, he was a dentist. And so there is a dental compound, which you wrap it, the whatever the component, you wrap it, it's like a putty, and then you hit it with the UV light and it hardens it. So instead of buying something new, and he made good money, but he was just an old school guy, didn't come from money, he built up from nothing. Instead of buying it new, he would put dental compound on whatever it was and fix it. That's how so many business owners operate their business. They're constantly fixing it. And we've seen businesses that, from the outside perspective, look like they're massively successful. But look at the job reviews, look at the employee reviews. You get in on the back end and talk to ex-employees, it's a complete mess. This is so many companies that we thought were successful, and then they imploded, and then you hear all the stories about how employees were treated. There's companies in lawsuits right now. So as a business owner, you never want to grow past your people. What you want to do, and there's two ways to do it. What I just described is putting the cart before the horse and dragging the horse along. You are trying to grow the business at the expense of the people, rather than what you should do, which is Invest heavily into your people. Invest in growing your people, and they will grow your business faster than you can grow it. If you're having to crack the whip from behind them, you're not a leader, you're a dictator. And this is on YouTube, so I'm not going to say what I want to say, but you know what I want to say. You're a, insert the word. That's not leadership. You want to inspire. I had a situation when I was early on in leadership where we had a team that was, we every weekend we would go and we would set up a venue for an event, and I led the team. I recruited the entire team, and I had a lot going on in the morning to prep because I was going to present and train. So I wasn't there in the morning, and some of the team got frustrated and they complained to my boss, and I was frustrated. Said, I'm prepping, I'm doing this, I'm not just not doing anything. They've got it. And what he said to me was, AJ, when you're leading people, you got to be there early. You got to be the earliest there. You got to be the latest there. Get there early, stay late until you get to the point where your team says, "Why are you here? Go home. We got it." That's when you know that you have shown up and you have led and inspired to where your team is telling you, "Hey, boss, we got it. We don't need you to be here. We know you got other things to do." And that can take some time. But invest in your people, invest in your culture. How do you build culture? Every morning, Kirk drops an inspirational quote for the team. Every single morning. That's just, it seems like a little thing, but it, for me personally, I hadn't even told him this. It always hits on something that I'm thinking about. It's like, I don't know if he's just listening to whatever AJ is complaining about and he finds a quote for it. It's like, boom, I drop that. But it always hits. So what are you doing to build culture? Even on these calls, if you get on the call early, there's music playing. It's not just silence. We have our community with our clients where we have a lot of cool stuff planned for this year just to bring clients together and create community and create culture with our team. We don't have meetings. We call them huddles. We find all these ways that we can shift the culture to, because words matter, timing matters, the way you invest in people matters. So those are the 10 big mistakes. I'm going to open it up to the team. Like if we want to add anything else to it, I know we've gone a little longer than we usually go, but that's part of delivering value. So if you guys have a question, you can hit your reaction button there on Zoom, and we're happy to take some questions and answer. So we'll open it up for a few minutes. If you're watching on YouTube and you want to attend live, go to the description, find the link to register for Business Builder so you can be here live with us every single week.